Aunt Miriam had died months ago. I never really knew her. She was one of those relatives spoken of in fragments, always followed by awkward silences and quick subject changes. Still, for reasons no one could explain, her will left me her house. No explanation, no prior contact, just a yellowed letter and a brittle old deed. The house was buried in a forgotten corner of the state, tucked between rust-colored hills and half-dead trees. I hadn't even known that part of the map existed. The road turned to gravel miles before I arrived, and my phone lost signal just after I passed the last gas station. There was a strange stillness clinging to the land, as if even the wind and birds didn't dare come too close. The house itself was withered and gray, its wooden frame sagging under the weight of years. Ivy strangled the porch columns. Windows stared like empty eyes. Even from the driveway, I felt something pressing on my chest. Still, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and something else, old perfume, faint and sour, the kind that clings to velvet and paper. The house groaned softly as I walked, like it remembered pain. I set my bag down in the downstairs guest room. I didn't even glance at the stairs. I didn't want to. Not yet. The second floor felt like it was watching. The electricity worked, surprisingly. I turned on a few lights, tried to ignore the way they flickered, and started poking around. There wasn't much. Furniture covered in sheets, old books, photographs of people I didn't recognize. But there was one locked door, at the top of the staircase, old and wooden, with a tarnished brass handle. Something about it made my skin crawl. That night, I tried to sleep. I'd barely drifted off when I heard a soft thump above me, then dragging. I sat up in bed, heart suddenly awake. My brain scrambled for explanations, old pipes, animals, the house settling. But then came another sound. A child's giggle, faint, muffled, right above the ceiling. I lay frozen until morning. In daylight I felt braver. Foolishly so. The attic door was still locked, but a small rusted key I found in the kitchen drawer fit perfectly. The door groaned as it opened, revealing the attic beyond. It was like stepping into another decade. Dust choked the air. Trunks were stacked in corners. Covered furniture stood like silent ghosts. And in the center of the room, lit by a single beam of sunlight from a cracked window, sat a chair. And in that chair sat a doll. It was old, Victorian style. Porcelain skin, tiny white shoes, a lacy dress yellowed with age. Golden curls framed its cracked face. Its glass eyes stared straight ahead, lips frozen in a crooked little smile. I don't know why it unsettled me so deeply. Maybe it was the fact that, even sitting still, it felt aware, like it knew I was there. I took a single step into the room, and the attic light bulb shattered above me. I screamed and bolted. That night it got worse. I locked my bedroom door. I moved a dresser in front of it. I slept with the lamp on. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of tiny footsteps on the hardwood outside. Pat, 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 then scratching. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails against the door. I held my breath, and then, click. My door's lock turned. I leapt from the bed and shoved the door shut before it could open, holding it with my shoulder. Silence returned. But when I turned, I saw it, the doll, sitting in the middle of the room. I hadn't brought it there. Its dress was slightly singed, one eye was missing, and on the wall, scratched into the plaster, were the words, "You found me." The next morning, I should have run. Instead, I went back to the attic with a crowbar and a can of kerosene from the shed. I was done playing nice. The chair was empty. I found the doll sitting inside a trunk this time, its smile wider. The air in the attic was freezing. As I poured kerosene, the house reacted, groaning, creaking like it was in pain, or warning me. The second I struck the match, I heard it again. The giggle. Right behind me, I turned. She wasn't sitting anymore. She was standing. Arms outstretched. Her joints cracked as she moved. Her mouth opened, too wide, and something that wasn't a voice came out. A shriek that sounded like glass breaking underwater. I threw the match. The attic exploded in flame. I raced downstairs as the fire spread faster than I thought possible. Smoke choked the halls. The heat followed like claws. Outside, I collapsed on the grass. The house blazed behind me, the sky above glowing orange. But just before the roof caved in, I saw her, standing in the burning window, watching, smiling. 2 days later, I drove until my tank nearly ran dry. Booked a motel 2 towns away. Tried to convince myself it was over. I destroyed the house, the doll, the curse. That night I came back to my room after dinner. The door was ajar. My stomach dropped. I stepped inside. There on the bed, untouched by flame, eyes whole again, sat the doll. Her smile was perfect. On the wall above her, scrawled in ash, "You burned the wrong house." It started with a favor I didn't want to do. My cousin Claire had inherited an old house in Yorkshire. She was off traveling with her new boyfriend and needed someone to check on the place, make sure the pipes hadn't burst, that kind of thing. I was between jobs, with too much free time and too little money, so I agreed. The house was isolated, wedged between thickets of wind-blown trees and curling mist that rolled across the moors like breathing smoke. When I pulled up that first afternoon, the stone walls looked darker than they should have in the sunlight, almost like they were damp with something that never dried. I unlocked the door. The inside was musty, wood polish, rotting paper, and that heavy scent old houses wear like a winter coat. I walked through slowly, calling out Claire's name even though I knew she wasn't there. Just instinct, I guess. The house was freezing. The central heating creaked to life after I twisted some knobs on the ancient boiler, but warmth never really settled in. Then I saw the painting. It was hanging in the hallway near the stairs, half shrouded in shadow. A little boy, no older than 6, with wide, glassy eyes full of tears. His cheeks were red and blotchy, his lips trembling. The detail was incredible, too much so. You could see every strand of his wet hair clinging to his forehead. His eyes followed you, or seemed to. And then, without meaning to, my mind dredged up something I hadn't thought about in years. I was maybe 10, sitting on the floor at my Nan's house while she chain-smoked her way through a pile of tabloid newspapers. She showed me one of them, a page creased and yellowed with age. "It's this painting, see," she'd whispered, jabbing the photo with her finger. "They say it's cursed, that every house it hangs in goes up in flames, but the painting, it always survives, not a scratch on it." I remember laughing, even though my skin had gone cold. Nan hadn't smiled back, just lit another cigarette and muttered, "Don't ever hang a crying child on your wall. Invite sadness, and it'll stay." I blinked back to the present, staring at the real thing in front of me. How the hell had Claire ended up with one? I told myself not to be superstitious. I was here for a few nights, tops. I'd check the plumbing, restock the fridge, and drive back to London. Easy. That first night, I barely slept. It wasn't just the wind moaning through the rafters or the branches scraping the windows like fingernails. It was something else, something deeper. I heard crying, soft at first, a tiny hitching sound, like a child trying not to sob too loudly. I sat bolt upright in bed, the sound vanishing as soon as I moved. I lay back down, heart racing. Old houses make weird sounds, I told myself. Floorboards shift, pipes groan, ghosts wail. I laughed, but it came out brittle. The next morning, I went to take a photo of the crying boy painting to send to Claire. I figured she'd find it funny, or maybe creepy. I raised my phone. The screen just showed a blank wall. I blinked, lowered the phone. The painting was still there. I tried again. Still blank. My fingers were suddenly cold, like I'd touched ice. I left the hallway without looking back. By noon, things got weirder. The crying started again, not at night, but in the afternoon. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard it, muffled and low, coming from the vents. It lasted exactly 13 seconds. I counted. The next sound was a knock, 3 soft taps at the front door. When I opened it, no one was there, just the moor, empty and shifting in the wind. I shut the door hard and bolted it. I was about to call Claire when I saw it. On the kitchen wall, a small black smudge, ash, about the size of a child's handprint. I reached out and touched it, half expecting it to smear, but it was dry, like soot sealed into the paint. I washed it off, scrubbing hard. That night, I unplugged the Wi-Fi router and shut off every light in the house. I lay in bed with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, not because I thought it would help, because I needed to feel like I had control. But I didn't. At exactly 3:07 a.m., I woke up gasping. The air was hot, suffocating. The room flickered red-orange. My walls were glowing with the reflection of flames, though I couldn't see any fire. Smoke poured under the door. I rushed into the hallway and stopped dead. The painting was burning. The crying boy was engulfed in flames, yet he didn't vanish. His eyes looked right at me, tears boiling down his cheeks, but the canvas didn't burn away. It just stayed there, wreathed in fire, mocking physics. I screamed. ran. When I reached the front door, I looked back once. Everything was fine. No smoke, no fire, no heat, just normal. But the painting was different. The boy wasn't crying anymore. His face was blank, empty, mouth closed, eyes dull. The next morning I packed. I had one foot out the door when I noticed something on the hallway wall. Another handprint, bigger this time. Near the stairs under the painting was a pile of burnt matchsticks. And then came the smell. Smoke. Old, oily, choking smoke. I turned back toward the kitchen and saw the boy, standing, in the hallway. The same face from the painting. Ash-smeared skin, blistered clothes. His eyes were dark now, not glassy or sad, angry. So angry and full of heat. He opened his mouth and screamed, a horrible, wordless sound that cracked the walls and made my knees buckle. The temperature surged. My skin felt like it was blistering. I ran, out the front door, down the drive. Didn't stop until I hit the main road and flagged down a car. The house burned down that night, completely gone, reduced to rubble. The fire department found no signs of arson. They said it was probably electrical. Only one thing survived. The crying boy painting, untouched, not a scorch mark on it. Claire called me the next day, crying. I couldn't tell her what I'd seen. I just said I was sorry. She kept the painting, said it was the only thing left. I've seen it since. On the wall behind her during video calls, the boy's back to crying now, but sometimes just for a second, he smiles. I wasn't supposed to be out there. The woods behind my cousin's house stretched for miles, the trees thick and tangled like fingers scratching at the sky. During the day, it was almost beautiful, all golden shafts of light and birdsong. But at night, the woods grew teeth. They told me never to go in after dark. Of course, that's exactly when I went. It started harmless enough, a dare between cousins. A few beers, a lot of stupid bravado, and a flashlight with half-dead batteries. I slipped through the back gate after dinner, my boots crunching over brittle leaves. The further I walked, the quieter it got. No crickets, no wind, just the rhythmic slap of my heart in my ears. After about 10 minutes, I spotted it, a clearing. In the center stood something strange, a low, weather-beaten box, no bigger than a doghouse, half sunk into the ground. It looked ancient, heavy, like it had been dragged there and abandoned. The air around it was wrong. Cold, even though it was midsummer. I could see my breath when I stepped closer. The box was made of dark, splintered wood, banded in rusted iron, no markings, no latch, just a faint, almost imperceptible humming, like something alive was trapped inside. I knew better. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around. But curiosity is a kind of sickness. I circled it slowly, my flashlight stuttering. That's when I heard it, a tap, soft but deliberate. From inside the box, I froze. My hand trembled, and the flashlight beam jerked across the clearing. I tried to convince myself it was a rat, maybe a trapped animal, maybe. Another tap. Then a long, dragging scrape, as if something inside was shifting, adjusting, getting comfortable. A hot, sour smell hit me, like rotting leaves and spoiled meat. My stomach twisted. Still, I knelt down, I don't know why. I pressed my ear to the rough wood, and I heard whispering. Faint, slurred, like a dozen voices speaking at once, underwater. I couldn't make out the words, but they knew I was there. I staggered back, heart hammering. The box sat there, unmoving. Then, footsteps behind me. I spun around, flashlight swinging wildly. Nothing, just the endless black between the trees. But I was no longer alone. I could feel it. Breath quickened, I started backing away from the box. My boot snagged on a root, and I stumbled. When I looked up again, something had changed. The box had shifted, closer, only a foot, maybe two, but it had definitely moved. That broke something in me. I turned and ran. Branches clawed at my arms, tore at my jacket. The flashlight slipped from my grasp, vanishing into the dark. Behind me, the woods exploded into sound, thudding footsteps, the snap of branches, a low, rattling chuckle that didn't sound human. I didn't look back. I just kept running. The trees thinned. I burst out of the woods into my cousin's backyard, gasping. The porch light glared like a lighthouse through the dark. Safe. I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? Hey, there's a haunted box back there. They'd laugh, tell me I was drunk. For a while I thought it was over. I was wrong. That night, lying in bed, I woke up to a scraping sound at my window. I lay there, paralyzed, eyes locked on the glass. At first I saw nothing, just my own reflection, pale and trembling. Then, a shape, small, squatting. tapping one long, dirt-crusted fingernail against the glass. The thing had no face, just a wide, gaping mouth where its eyes should be, grinning impossibly wide, and clutched tight in its withered arms was the box. It tapped again, and I heard the whispering, clearer now, almost seductive, "Let us in." I bolted upright, lights on, curtains ripped shut. I stayed up all night, staring at the window, heart hammering so loud I thought it might burst. Morning came, the thing was gone. But outside, pressed into the muddy ground beneath my window, were fingerprints. Deep, clawed trenches where the box had sat. I tried to leave the next day, packed my things, made up some excuse. But when I went to load my car, there, sitting neatly in the driver's seat, was the box. No explanation. No one saw who put it there. It just was. The humming was louder now, a feverish, grating sound that drilled straight into my skull. I slammed the car door shut, heart pounding. That's when I realized it wasn't following me. It was choosing me. I couldn't drive, couldn't think. The only thing I could do was return it. So here I am, back in the woods, dragging the box through the underbrush, panting, muscles straining. Every step deeper, the whispers grow louder, more urgent. The clearing looms ahead, pale under a blood-red sunset. I stagger into the center, drop the box onto the earth. It thuds like a heartbeat. The ground trembles slightly under my feet. I turn to leave. But the trees have moved. They're closer now, a solid wall of black trunks. No way out. Behind me, the box creaks open. A foul wind rushes past, carrying with it the smell of the grave. The whispers rise into a shriek. I glance back. Something huge and wrong is unfolding from inside the box. Long limbs, too many joints, glimmering black eyes. It smiles. You brought yourself. The last thing I feel is the ground opening up beneath me. The last thing I hear is my own scream, swallowed by the earth. And then, silence. The box sits alone once more, waiting for the next curious soul.